Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Australian Wildlife with Ashley. I'm your host, Ashley. Today we're going to be talking about the koala. The koala is a marsupial that is native to eastern and southern Australia. They live in the woodlands on eucalyptus trees, and the leaves of these eucalyptus trees make up most of their diet. Eucalyptus is poisonous to most animals, but the koala has a special digestive system that helps detoxify the chemicals in these leaves.
Koalas are very fussy eaters. Even though there are almost 700 species of eucalyptus, koalas will usually show a preference for just a select few.
Koalas get a majority of their water from the leaves, so they do not usually need to search for a water source. This is why the Aboriginals call them the koala, which means no drink in their language. However, eucalyptus leaves are very low in nutritional value, so they have a very low energy diet.
In order to save energy, the koala sleeps for up to 20 hours a day. During waking hours, the koala spends most of its time eating.
Koalas rarely come to the ground from the treetops because this is where they are vulnerable to predators such as dingoes and dogs. Koalas live in something called home ranges and are quite territorial. Males have scent glands on their chests and will mark trees with their scent, so koalas make sure to sniff the base of a tree before climbing. When a young koala becomes sexually mature, it must leave its mother's home range and find a territory of its own.
Male koalas can get into fights involving wrestling and biting over territory and potential mates, but they tend to avoid expending their energy in this way, so they prefer to intimidate other males with their loud bellow.
Baby koalas, called joeys, are the size of a jelly bean when they are born, and they mature in the mother's pouch for about 6 months. They will then spend another 6 months with the mother until they are fully grown, usually riding on the mother's back for transportation. Koalas live to be between 13 to 18 years of age, both in the wild and in captivity. Koalas are popular worldwide in the face of many Australian souvenirs. Because they look so cute and cuddly, they are a well-loved animal, and tourists consider them one of the must-see things in Australia. In fact, they are willing to pay a lot of money to get a chance to hug a koala. However, this wasn't always the case.
Looking at the history of koala and human interactions over time, they were featured in many Dreamtime stories and cave paintings of Indigenous Australians. Some tribes regarded the koala as important and wise, while others thought they were lazy and hunted koalas for food. As European settlers came to Australia, the koalas' habitats were cleared, and in the years leading up to the 1930s, millions of koalas were killed for their pelts. Their soft, thick fur was used for rugs, coats, and other clothing.
By 1924, the koala was extinct in South Australia and severely depleted in all other states. There was eventually a public outcry, and Australians came together for the first time to rally against the culling of koalas. The koala's life suddenly became more valuable than the coats and rugs made from them, even though koalas don't serve much ecological purpose.
A possible reason why the public cared about koalas could be the fact that they were being depicted more and more in children's programs, comics, and books. For example, Blinky Bill.
Another possible theory is the baby schema. Conrad Lorenz's theory that humans are innately attracted to infant-like features, for example, a round face, high forehead, and big eyes, and that we display more caring and protective behaviours towards these features. With its teddy bear-like face and childlike body proportions, it is possible that humans had this innate baby schema response towards a koala and started to value their lives. They can be a little bit aggressive to humans in the wild, but they can be domesticated to some extent, since many of them live in wildlife sanctuaries. They can be taught to not be so aggressive and can become accustomed to humans. However, emerging studies have shown that koalas get stressed by too much human interaction.
One study by Larson, Sherwin and Rolt showed that both the number of visitors and the level of noise had an effect, and the koalas showed increased vigilance. Another study by Narayan, Webster and Nicholson showed that male koalas that were handled by humans had twice the amount of cortisol levels than non-handled koalas.
This may seem minor, but for an animal with such a low energy diet, stress is very energy costly, and we don't know how this may affect the koala in the long term. Stress is being investigated as a factor that causes the manifestation of chlamydia in koalas. Around 50% of koalas have chlamydia, and it can lead to blindness, bladder infections, infertility, and even death.
As a result of these new findings about koala stress, some states have a law against hugging koalas now, including Victoria and New South Wales. But other states allow hugging koalas, and the animals do seem very placid during these interactions. It is impossible to know how the koalas themselves really feel about such interactions with humans. Chlamydia is high even in wild koala populations, so what could be stressful for them in the wild? Well, koalas are currently losing their homes due to the clearing of trees for urbanization. With the trees gone, koalas are spending time on the ground looking for new food and shelter. This is where they are most at risk of being run over by cars, becoming prey to dingoes and dogs, and developing stress-induced chlamydia.
Mostly due to deforestation, koalas are now listed as a vulnerable species. In the past 20 years alone, the koala population has dropped 25% in New South Wales. Groups such as the World Wildlife Foundation are calling to conserve the koala habitat, while koala crossings, which are tunnels and bridges, are being built across busy roads in some areas of Australia. Professor Darryl Jones, part of the research team, said they were unsure if the koalas would be smart enough to figure out these crossings. However, within 3 weeks, they were already used to the crossings. Impressive, but it's also helping to keep them alive. Well guys, I hope you learned a lot about koalas today. Make sure to tune in next week for another episode of Australian Wildlife with Ashley.